If someone says it hasn't affected their life, they're probably lying. In this video, we want to talk about something that we spend our entire lives trying to earn, and something that negatively affects all of it: inflation. In simple terms, inflation means there's more money than goods and services, and that means the prices will go up. To get a better understanding, let's imagine we all live in a village, and that village has one tiny market where everything is bought from there. But let's imagine a bank opens up in this village and they say, we will give you a loan with only a 1% interest rate. When there's an interest rate this low, everybody attacks the bank to get a loan. And that means pretty much everyone has money in their hands now. So that means the only market that's available in that village has a lot of new customers, and they're pretty much buying everything out. Just put your shoes inside the store owner. He realizes that everything is being bought out, so he decides to raise the prices. Exactly what this store owner did is cause inflation. The village was an example. The entire village is pretty much the entire country, and that tiny market where everything is being bought from is the entire country's market. A store that sells clothing realizes that everything is being bought out, and they calculate to go and replace all that goods is going to take a lot of money and time. So that means it's easier for them to raise the price rather than do that. Something like this could happen on a daily basis, or weekly, or even longer. People that study economy believe that a little bit of inflation is very good for the economy because it promotes growth. But when it passes a certain degree or a percentage, then it gets ridiculous and it actually damages the people's wealth and also the entire country's economy. But let me give you another example. Let's imagine there is a bike store and he's selling all his bikes at double the price of MSRP. So his business is booming. He decides to go to the bank, get a massive loan, and create his own bicycle factory so he can meet his demands. He starts the company. He helps the economy of the country by doing this and creates his own bicycle shop. But when he puts these bicycles in his showroom, the customers are all gone and nobody's trying to buy anymore. What we just explained to you is called a recession. When a recession happens, the same bank that gave a loan to create that factory don't give out loans anymore. So the businessman that invested all this money and time is forced to either cause bankruptcy or to lay everyone off and maybe survive. 2008, this is exactly what happened. But 2008 was a great recession, something we had never seen before in recent history. 12 years after the 2008 crisis, that's when the coronavirus shows up, and that caused more than 90% of different countries' economy to take a huge hit. So that forces a lot of governments to start printing money. Even the US government sets a record. 40% of the US dollar in the market today was printed after 2020. Printing the US dollar not only negatively affected the US economy, but it actually negatively affected the world's economy. Let's say you would get a box of screw for $1 before 2020. You could never get this box of screw for $1 anymore. After the coronavirus, the US government gave all its citizens about $3,200. And since a lot of people had lost their job, this money was supposed to pay for some stuff like rent and some groceries. But this was the money they had printed. When everybody received all this cash, they started buying everything out, anything they needed. House supplies, bicycles, toys for their kids, anything you name it, they were buying. Alongside all this, because of the coronavirus, a lot of factories had cut staff, so everything was slowed down, including manufacturing. So you would walk into stores and see empty shelves for the first time in many decades. And of course, that caused the store owners to start raising prices. Everybody has money, but nothing is reasonable to buy. And this is exactly what inflation means. But what is interest rate? Every single country has a central bank that controls all the banks in that country. Some call the central bank the puppet master of that country's economy. A central bank is not a normal bank where you can just go there and open a savings account and put your money in there. No, the central bank is a part of the federal government and sets the rules for normal banks to follow, including interest rates. A central bank's job is to keep balance in the economy. They have to do something where there is not too much money and not too much goods and services. The reason that economy experts call central banks puppet masters of the economy is because they adjust it in a way where most of the population continues to spend their money. When people continue to buy and buy, that means the economy is doing very well. One of the most important tools a central bank has is the interest rate. Anybody that wants to buy a house, a car, or expand their business, they go to a bank to ask for a loan. And in this situation, the interest rate is extremely important. If the interest rate is very low, like 2%, then everybody wants to get a loan, so they attack the banks. But if they're asking 10% interest rate, then the people asking for a loan is extremely low. When the interest rate is lower, the more people owe because they want to get a loan for everything. Like after the 2020 pandemic, the US Federal Reserve tried to make it easier for people to get a loan and buy a home. They brought the interest rate under 2%, so it's very low. Rules like this really answered. Not only did everybody try to get a loan, but everything got more and more expensive, especially housing. But nowadays, in the year 2024, a lot of people have a lot of money, but nothing is worth anything. So that means there's a lot of inflation. So that's why the Federal Reserve raised interest rates recently to about 6%. So this is exactly why the central bank is the puppet master of that country. With one simple decision, they could completely change the course of that economy. And of course, change people's lives for the better or the worse. The biggest inflation rate in US history happened after the year 2020. There's more than 8% inflation and it still remains. But you might say, what about different countries that have a lot of inflation like Iran, Argentina, or Vietnam? A lot of money is being printed all the time, and that causes the prices to go up drastically the next day. And of course, the interest rate is at its maximum. The website Economics Observatory says that the Iranian economy is one of the most complicated ones, and the coronavirus made it even more complicated. Of course, a lot of irresponsible people in charge, a lot of trouble with foreign nations, sanctions, and a lot of corruption makes this inflation to continue to rise. One of the worst economies is probably seen in the Republic of Weimar, or Venezuela a few years ago. If you've seen our video about the Treaty of Versailles, you'll know why Germany after World War I was in such a terrible place. Venezuela in the year 2018 was pretty much the same. Their currency was basically worthless, where they would take the cash and turn it into origami so they can maybe sell it for $1 and get some bread. You might not believe it, but one of the biggest inflation that happened in world's history was in Zimbabwe, and that was back in 2008, where their currency was 100% worthless. The thing that makes Weimar Republic different from these countries is that the German mark at this time actually had some value. If you brought a truckload of it, they might have gave you $1. But in Venezuela or Zimbabwe, if you brought a truckload of it, they would tell you we would have to charge you to dump all this trash. But on the other side, if you have a good economy, one of the greatest things the citizens of that country can do is continue spending money, even though that sounds ridiculous and irresponsible. But when your citizens spend a lot of money, that promotes growth in the economy, just like the US economy, where the citizens buy so much stuff that their garages is filled with junk. But that's the beauty of it. You might say they're very wasteful, but that doesn't seem like it. But either way, what they did has created the strongest economy in the world.